This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Mapper Forward's first on-demand workshop, How to Become a Coffee Consultant. Available now online for you to learn at your own pace with a certificate available upon completion. Click the link in the show notes to access today for just €50. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 4 of a 5-part series with Todd McCarthy from Full Spectrum. I knew it was going to happen at least once. No, but you're from Full Spectrum because you're freshly minted from Full Spectrum. So, yes, Todd McCarthy from Full Spectrum. It does. Of course it does. But Todd, we've been talking about launching a coffee roasting brand. And the reason that I completely messed that up there was because you are just freshly minted into Full Spectrum. We're 4 days in at the time of the recording of this podcast. And we've been talking about a whole bunch of things around what it is to launch a coffee roasting brand today. A part of your journey to get to today, where you've launched, was that you decided to go to Origin for the first time. Mm-hmm. And you did that, it was December, right? December?
Just before Christmas, yeah.
Just before Christmas, 2022. I forget what year we're in, but let's just go with 2022.
That's fine, I love it.
So what was that like? How was that life-changing for you as a coffee roaster and as a business owner?
Sure. It's so easy just to sit in Australia where I am and all you have is photos. All you have is origin stories from other roasters. And for a long time, because I was so involved in the cafe sphere, Origin just was not front and center for me. Right. I had to worry about a business. I had to worry about my consumers. I had to worry about my staff. And the idea of traveling to Origin, it just seemed so far away. But my good friends from CoffeeNet, they held an annual coffee origin trip to their processing facility, La Padera in Quindío in Colombia. And during a cupping at their HQ in Sydney, Oscar pitched the idea to me, and at the time I was feeling good, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to say yes. And to say yes, it was still so far away, but to land in Colombia was the most pivotal moment that I've ever had in my career. You know,
really?
I landed there, and I thought, this is fucking it. You know, this is
yes.
it. This is.
I love that.
And I've got a huge amount of respect for the cafe culture, but there was always a disconnect for me from the cafe side of the coffee industry to the producing side of the coffee industry. And now I am using Full Spectrum as a vessel to be able to tell those stories that I have that I am now able to tell from Origin.
What was it about Origin that made you feel like this is it? This is where I need to be as a roaster?
One thing that you never ever see in photos, or you never get to experience through photographs, is smell.
Okay.
And on the Full Spectrum website, you will be able to see a whole bunch of photos from the processing facility La Padera. And just to be able to smell that many cherries come in, drying on the patios, drying in the mechanical dryers, it was just that sensory experience that really was just the cherry on top, you know. I just feel so lucky to be able to have gone there and really experience firsthand what it's like. But don't get me wrong, I mean, there were a huge amount of positives, but there were also negatives as well. Is that you start to see, or not so much negatives, but things that I feel as if that I have the power to be able to help with, you know?
Like what?
Well, a big thing for me was to really understand cultivation practices. The biggest takeaway that I had from Colombia was surrounding washed processed coffees. My understanding of washed processed coffees was that all of the cherries are picked and they're pulped in that same day. But the biggest difference at Origin, rather than not being there, was to see that that's not quite the case. All of the coffee cherries, especially if they're going to be washed, I didn't realise, I didn't realise that there was always going to be a period of in-cherry fermentation. So in-cherry fermentation is happening either in silos, in buckets, in GrainPro bags, and that just adds another level of complexity to wash process coffees. That was a big eye opener for me, is that everyone has a really loose framework that they work around, and it's sort of impacts quality control through their processing as well. But roasters, I mean, they could observe processing methods used at Origin, whether it's washed or natural or honey, and then you get to understand the intricacies of the coffee processing that then helps roasters to really refine their roasting techniques, that then complements and enhances flavour characteristics that are inherent to that coffee.
What was it like meeting the people whose hands are actually the reason that you get the green coffee that you get? How did that change you?
They're just so involved, and it's an entire families, But the thing that So I lost the question. It just sort of slipped out of my mind.
That's okay. Tis the season, I assure you. That's been happening to me a lot. But when you meet the people that are growing the coffee, that are processing the coffee, there's a disconnect if you're a roaster that hasn't actually met those people. You're just like buying spot coffee, roasting the coffee. And sure, you treat it well and you put your craft into that. But then you get a new layer when you go and you walk amongst the people who are actually give you the privilege of being able to have that experience. Okay. What was that like for you? Well, how does that change you as a roaster?
Well, just seeing that not everything is as it seems, the level of complexity that it takes to put together, say, a community lot is just witnessing that firsthand was, I just couldn't believe that living in Australia, all of the hard work that goes into traceability, I thought, how do they keep track of this?
Yeah.
It was just so overwhelming, the amount of coffees that were coming in, and it just seemed, of course, it's second nature to people who work in it every single day of the week, but it was just, I will never ever look at a coffee the same, knowing what sort of journey it's been on.
And when you now are thinking about using a new coffee, do you approach that differently than you did before you went to Origin?
Yes.
What's the mindset about that? Like, do you look at it and say, oh, so now it's still just about cupping it and like roasting it and cupping it and scoring it, or is there more that goes into thinking about it?
Well, traveling to Origin, you get to establish relationships.
Okay.
Whether that be with a single producer, or whether that be through a very small growing network. But
is your relationship different to the coffee than it was before?
Without a doubt, yeah. I was lucky enough to select 6 or 7 lots from my trip to Colombia. And a big part of the Full Spectrum launch last week was to be able to showcase those coffees that I had selected. And that for me was witnessing the coffee industry full circle, me going to Origin to select these coffees, meeting the producers, witnessing firsthand the incredibly strenuous work that goes into producing excellent cups of coffee.
Did that surprise you, Todd?
Did
it surprise you how much strenuous work goes into producing the coffee?
No, I had a very good idea of what went into it, but I mean to witness that's their day to day, That's
right.
But me being able to reward them for that was, it's incredible, you know. But getting that coffee into Australia, roasting it, and then being able to serve it to the people that came to the launch party. I mean, that's
it's a gift.
Does it get any better than that, you know?
Yeah. And you can talk about it differently.
Fortunate that I am that person that is able to provide that experience to people, but it doesn't get any better.
Do you? I hear baristas when they talk about after, let's say, they go to a Meet the Producer event, and they've gone to Origin because their boss decided to take them, and the way that they serve the coffee, the way they talk about the coffee is very differently. They have a whole different respect for their job as a custodian of the coffee supply chain.
Exactly.
How is that for you when it comes to paying for coffee as a roaster? Do you look at paying for coffee in a different way than you did before?
I've just got a lot more respect and appreciation for coffees that do cost a little bit more, you know. But I mean, at the same time, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier with consumer preference, and not all consumers are going to be into something that is an 88-point natural extended fermentation coffee, you know. But the bulk of the coffees that I cupped in Colombia were styled towards that segment. But I mean, that's my job now, is to be able to come back and become the educator and sort of talk to them. And I now have the ability to talk to them in a very sincere way about how that coffee was produced and at the end of the day, who produced it.
Yeah, that's amazing. In the final episode of this series, we're going to kind of bring all of this stuff that we've talked about together, and you're going to give us some tips for people who are looking to launch a coffee roasting brand, or who are in the final stages, I guess, of putting their business out there. You're going to give us the 5 tips that you would recommend that people focus on to get this happening. So join us for the next episode, folks. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in, friends. There are 2 ways you can support this podcast. Firstly, become a paid member of our YouTube channel. Secondly, you can join our Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video before you leave, and check the show notes for more information. Now, this is what you should check out next.